So I guess we're getting around the point where I went full-time last year, which means that we are now basically around my 1 year anniversary for me living full-time presenting as female. And so presenting as female doesn't necessarily include makeup all the time. And when it didn't, at least in the beginning, that didn't always work out in my favor, I guess. Maybe now it would more, I don't know. Now I don't really go out without makeup on. But now that I've figured out how to consistently create this look, I don't think I want to go out without makeup on anyway. I really think this is working pretty well. But anyway, so yeah, 1 year of full-time, and I guess I can talk about like how that feels, like whatever. Like, so if you have other specific questions that I don't get to in the video, leave them in the comments, and I'll make a follow-up if there's kind of enough material there to make another video. But anyway, so yeah. And I think I have to be a little bit specific and, add that this also has to do with passing, because I think passing full-time is a very different experience than not passing, and without, like, I understand that my position, my experience is going to be very different than somebody else who maybe didn't pass. But with that in mind, I think that the first thing to talk about is how your transition is really your physical transition, your social transition, and your emotional or your psychological transition. And going full-time, doesn't really impact your physical so much, where the only difference is that now I've had 27 months of hormones instead of 15 months of hormones in me. And yes, that does make a lot of changes, but then so does the fact that being full-time for a year, presenting full-time for a year, means that I know how to take better care of my skin, better care of my hair, and you're figuring out how some things work that other people have had their entire life to figure out. So in terms of clothes, colors, all sorts of things like that, where it's kind of like you're a sophomore in college now instead of a freshman, or high school, I guess, probably pretty equivalent. But then, like, the big changes are obviously that social component, because going full-time means, like, adding that into your routine, being treated differently in the workplace. Like, I can't say that I've noticed too much of that, but maybe that's because my company is not a bank where the gender split would be a lot different. Yeah, like, and so based on that, like, the social changes themselves aren't that big of a deal, in my opinion. It's basically, I was a guy in the workplace, now I'm a woman in the workplace, and does that change some things? Yes. Does it really change things that much? No. Like, most of your life is the same, regardless of what gender you are, but how you react to things will change. So your emotional kind of response to maybe criticism at work, or underperformance, or other things that are taking place, like small things where maybe this wouldn't have affected you in life in general. So if you take it outside of the workplace, like whatever, like relationships, your dynamics there will probably change some. And part of that is also just like your needs change as you become more kind of self-actualized through your transition, I think, maybe. But yeah, like how you feel about things is going to change a lot, and being able to work through that successfully, I think, is one of the big things that helps with transition. So it's like I don't know how exactly to give advice on working through that. I think like that's something for a therapist or a professional, but it is really just to talk through some of these things that bother you and just like figure out why it's bothering you, and then whether or not you even have control over that would be sort of a place to start. So you can't really control that guys now look at you like you're a piece of meat. So probably not worth too much time thinking about that. But then it is important to consider that when you're then thinking about, well, who am I going to go out on a date with? And spending a year full time now means I'm going out on more dates, being asked out on more dates and things like that. And so all the baggage that comes with dating just in general, now, I mean, it's still, does he or she like me? I like them. Like, that's still pretty much the same, but, I mean, obviously, plenty of stuff will change in that dynamic. So, yeah, I would say that's the big one, and I think that's not one where it's like laser or voice work or hormones, where it's like, well, if you give it enough time, like, that'll help set you up before you do your stressful transition. Like, this is all stuff you have to figure out how to deal with once you go full time, basically. And I guess if you have specific questions, maybe there's something that I'm overlooking, but like really not a ton changes.